Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm here today, as you can see, with my lovely mum, Suzanne.
Hello.
She has been in a video with me before. Do you remember we did a parent tag with Dad as well?
Enjoyed that one.
Several years ago. If you look back in the annals of time in my YouTube channel, you'll probably be able to find that one. But this is a video that we have talked about making for, I think we'd first talked about it years ago, didn't we?
Did. Yes.
Finally got round to it after a long time. And this is Mum's very own. I don't know if you watch Long Lost Family on TV with Davina McCall. That's your favourite programme, isn't it?
Yes, one of them. Yes.
That and 24 Hours in A&E.
Oh yes, yes, all the hospital ones. I like all those.
And Mum loves that programme. And this is your very own Long Lost Family story,
yes, which
makes me Davina McCall, I think, in this video. You'll have to enlist your imagination for that, I think. But yeah, I wanted to tell this one, or I wanted Mum to tell this one, because it's an unusual story for a start, and also because, sorry, I've got a really bad flickering eyelid, and also because I would like to be able to look back on it in years to come when you're no longer with us.
Oh dear, yes.
No, I think for the grandchildren as well, to be able to look back on it, because it's a sort of family story that gets lost over time, isn't it?
And so it's probably something that would be of more interest to them, or you and them later on, than it is probably at the moment. Yeah, yes, possibly. Anyway, let's start. Where would you like to start? I guess with your childhood. At the beginning, yes, at the beginning.
In 1943, you all know when she was born, because it's just been her 80th birthday.
Yes.
So,
yes, so 1943, yes, I was born then, and I lived in my childhood with my mother, and I was brought up, but I'm told by my mother that we lost my father in the war, which I suppose was true in a way. However,
and it was the time you were born in 43, so the war was still on. Yes, it was the last 2 years of the war, wasn't it? Second World War, obviously. And
so my childhood was very happy. My mother was lovely, and it was all good. And it wasn't until very much later, when I was at boarding school and I was about 14, that I think one of my friends must have asked me about my father, and to be honest, I hadn't really given it any thought. We just lost him during the war, and I'd never asked my mother about it. And this question that I was asking, I suddenly thought, I need to know about my father. So I wrote my mother a letter from boarding school and asked her what had happened to him. And I got a letter back from her within a few days. I think I still got it, or might have thrown it away recently. But and she sort of poured her heart out to me, and she said that she'd married a man, an Irishman, who was considerably older than her. He was in his, I think she was 29 or 30, and he was in his 50s.
So even 30 in those days, sorry to interrupt, but that was quite old for a woman to marry,
yes, it
wasn't
was,
it?
Yes, she'd had lots of boyfriends, some of which she said she should have married instead of my father. Anyway, I haven't got to the story yet. He wined and dined her. He was Irish, as well as being older than her, and she had a lovely life with it. He'd been, he'd been in the RAF, yes, and during the war, and he treated her very well and took her out to lovely. But he was also a journalist in Civvy Street, and he took her to first night shows in London. So I think it was all very glamorous and very nice. And then she married him, I assume. And I've got one picture of her getting married. Well, she wasn't dressed in white. She was wearing a very nice suit. And my grandparents were also on this picture. And the look that my grandmother is giving my father tells a tale. She was obviously quite horrified.
You said that she'd written you this letter and poured her heart out. She told you this whole story in the letter, didn't she?
Yes, she did. Yes, I'm not making myself quite clear. Yes, she told me that. Anyway, when she was married, they went down to live in Newquay. I think my father had been posted to Newquay in some role, and they lived a very lovely, happy life there, and it was all good. And my father apparently had a son by a previous marriage who was about 13 or 14 at the time, and I think my mother got on very well with him, and he was also quite friendly with his ex-wife, who was called Billy, and they were all all friends together. It was very strange really, but quite nice. They all got on well.
I called my mum's mum, I called Dabadoo for whatever reason rather than Granny. But Dabadoo was his second wife then.
She was his second wife, yes.
Yeah.
I think she might even have been his third, as it turned out.
But that
eventually.
didn't turn out.
That we don't really know
later
that.
in the
Yes, so
story.
there was certainly another child at some. I don't know. That's all still a mystery to me. We should never know. So anyway, as I say, they lived this very happy life in Newquay. It was all good and quite glamorous and nice. And then my mother was pregnant with me. And things seemed to go downhill then. I don't really know a lot about that stage, but I think then he was posted somewhere else. And my mother, because the war was still on, my mother went to live in Skegness with her best friend, whose husband was also away at the war. So they lived together in Skegness. And I think, no, I wasn't born there, but I was born in Southgate in London. So she must have moved up to Skegness after I'd been born. And that was all quite good, and that's as much as I know. My father saw me once, apparently. Once. Don't know where, don't know when, but he saw me once, and then he disappeared out of my mother's life. And she went to live with her sister, who was widowed, and my childhood up to the age of about 7 was with my aunt, my mother's sister.
And she told you all this in this letter, so this was all news to you, so you were a bit gobsmacked, I imagine.
Absolutely, yes, I couldn't believe it. Yes, it was all very strange, and I thought about it, I took it all in, I thought about it a lot more, and then I didn't think about it for a long time. I thought, my life's quite happy, I haven't missed my father. It would have been nice to have had somebody, but that's the way it is. There's lots of other people that this has happened to as well, so I'm not out of the ordinary. And it wasn't until, I don't know what the date was when we went to Ireland.
Oh, early, it was before Will was born, wasn't it? It was sort of mid-90s, I think.
Was it mid-90s?
I would say mid-90s,
we were having my husband's business, and we were having exhibitions over in Ireland, and Caroline was with us one of these weekends. And
Ashley was working with my dad as well at the time,
right,
and my
yes.
brother, was family business type of thing, wasn't it?
It was, yes. Yeah. And we were sitting in the hotel bedroom in Dublin, which is incidentally where my father came from, and I said to Caroline, I'm going to look in the phone book and look up all the Bateman's, and I'm going to write to them.
Bateman was her maiden name.
Yes, sorry, I forgot to put that, yes. And there were from memory, about 16 of them, I think.
They just talked about a phone book. A phone book was
yes,
such a thing of the time, wasn't it? Don't have phone books anymore.
No,
but I remember we
yes,
sat in the bedroom, we looked up all the Batemans.
Yes.
And there was a lot, wasn't there?
Yes, about 16, I think. And when I got home, I wrote to them all, posted them off to Ireland, and I think I got probably about 6 replies, something like that. 5 of them were no relation, well, in fact, all 6 of them were no relation to me, but very nice letters, and hoped I was lucky in my search. But one of the 6 said, I'm not related to you, however, I did know your father. We worked together on the Irish Times, and I think my father also worked for Tatler. He was a journalist, I think I said that.
The magazine, Tatler.
Yeah.
Can I just say, at this point when we went to Dabadoo was dead, wasn't she? She died.
Yes.
She died.
Yes, I omitted to say that. I didn't do anything because I thought it would offend her memory. I thought she'd be upset. So I never did anything, although, I thought a lot about it. And I didn't really get the opportunity because, the Ireland thing.
She was if I hope you don't mind me saying, she was quite ashamed of it. I think she felt quite ashamed of the whole situation and didn't like talking about it at all, because I remember being a bit interested. We were doing family trees at school or something, and I said, well, what about my granddad? And she was very closed about it and really
would never speak.
No,
she'd speak about it.
I think because of the times were different then, being divorced or, it was...
Exactly,
she felt ashamed of it, and obviously her family hadn't liked it either, had they?
No, and if I asked her any questions, she would say to me, I don't want to talk about that time of my life, so I really grew up knowing nothing about him. So anyway, this person said that he used to work with my father, and he said, I've left a bit out.
Oh, okay. We could go we'll do the bit that we've left out, and I might edit it backwards, back in, so go on.
Oh, now it's gone out of my mind.
Oh, okay. The person who said he worked with your father.
Yes, yeah, well, I can't remember what the bit I've left out is now.
Oh,
It's my
okay.
memory going. I'm 80 now, so you've got to forgive me. Things go pop in my memory and then pop out again just as quickly.
I'm only 55. It's a slippery slope downhill.
Now I've lost the thread of where I've got
Oh,
to
right, so we were in Ireland, and you'd written
Yes.
to all the people called
Yes.
Bateman in the phone book in Dublin, and you'd had 6 replies.
Yes, that's right.
One of them
said,
Yeah.
I'm not related to you, but I did know your father. I worked with him on the Irish Times. He said, I can tell you that he is dead,
Yeah.
because he said I went to his funeral, and he'd remarried and had 3 small boys at the funeral, which was interesting.
And did he tell you what year the funeral was? I can't remember.
I think he did. Yes, it did, because it was the same year I got married. Same
63.
year, earlier, yes, 63.
Yeah.
Earlier in 63 that I got married. So that was all quite interesting, and I sort of stored this way. I wrote to him again, see if there was anything else he could remember, and he said he'd been all through his diaries to see if he could.
Yeah, it was nice, wasn't it?
But he was very elderly by that time. But it was lovely of him to reply to that, and it gave me sort of fresh hope that I might find something else out. Anyway, it all sort of died a bit of a death because I didn't know where to go or what to find out, and then I watched a television programme about long lost families tracing relatives, and there was this lady mentioned called Ariel Bruce, who specialised in finding particularly Irish people, and my ears pricked up and I thought, that's interesting. And she's in fact been on the television quite a lot in these Davina McCall's programmes since. So, and she lived in Southsea, whereas I live in Bournemouth. That was actually not too far away. So I contacted her and told her all the details I had, the few details I had, not very many. And I think she phoned me up and said, would I like to go and see her and talk about it? And I said, yes, I would very much. So my husband and I went over there, and she was charming. She was absolutely lovely. And she said, well, I think I probably have quite a bit of luck in finding your father. And I think
well, not your father, your family, or if you
my
had
family, yes.
To find you, you want to know if you had any other relations,
yes,
didn't
exactly,
you, really?
yes, yes. So she said, leave it with me and I'll contact you as and when I find anything out. And I can't remember now how long it was, but say 3 months, something like that, I got a phone call from her saying, I'm hot onto it. She said, I'm doing quite well. She said, I'll ring you again in a few weeks. Of course, I got very excited by this, and she said, I'll see how I get on. And she duly rang me again in 3 or 4 weeks or something, and she said, I've been talking to your brother, she said today. I said, I don't believe. She said, you've got 3 brothers.
She didn't even know she had a brother, really, did you?
No, well, I knew I had this older one.
Half-brother,
Half brother, yes. I knew I had the older one, didn't know anything about him. And so she said, you actually got 4 brothers. There were 3 from the marriage after my mother's marriage to him, and the older one who my mother knew when they lived in Newquay. And she said, one of them's going to ring you a bit later on. Well, I couldn't believe it. I was so ecstatic. I was so excited about it. And he duly rang me the same day. This was the oldest one of the younger 3.
Was that Brian?
Brian, yes. And he was lovely on the phone. He said to me, we always knew about you. He said, we knew that you existed, which was quite nice to know. And he said, there's also a brother from the first marriage, Mike.
So he would be older than you.
He was old. He was the one that my mother knew. His actual name was Ivor, but he hated Ivor, so he was always called Mike. And he lived in
Brighton, up towards Brighton, somewhere, Worthing?
Yeah.
that direction. Sussex, somewhere, I think.
Sussex, yes. Yeah. And I spoke to 3 of them, the older one and the 2 older ones of the last marriage, and spoke to them all on the phone that day, and it was so exciting. It was wonderful. It was what I needed to know, what had been missing in my life, just the fact that they all knew about me, which was lovely.
And the fact that Mike knew your mother as well.
He
said that was lovely.
Yes,
wasn't it?
He said I lived in Newquay with them. He said we used to go to the local hotel to dance every Saturday, and he said I danced with your mother. She loved dancing, so it was so lovely. He told me so much. It was absolutely lovely.
To go from being an only child to having 4 half brothers.
Yes,
it was a day
amazing.
almost, wasn't it?
So anyway, we arranged to meet the older one with his wife. I I think it was actually Mother's Day, I think we met him, because we went to a pub and of course it was so busy we couldn't find a seat to sit in. But and he came with his wife and it was just lovely. He was so pleased to see me and he told me lots of stories, and he came with a photograph album. Oh, and the other brother was there as well, the oldest one from the 3 younger ones. It's complicated, I know, I'm sorry about this. But it was just lovely. And sadly, Mike Ivor, the oldest one, who my mother knew, had quite bad cancer at this stage. He looked awful, I must say. And I think he knew he was going to die, but anyway, we had this lovely reunion, and and then we were in sort of regular contact. They told me lots of little bits. Mike had written his life story, which I've still got, and that was very interesting, and you know, all the things he'd done and throughout his life. So it was absolutely lovely. Really
so nice that you would be able to connect with him before he died as well.
It was. He was very, very nice, very nice. And then after a few months, I met the middle brother from the 3 younger ones. He lives up in Terry. Yes, he lived up in
Liverpool.
Liverpool, yes. And I've met up with him a few times.
And his wife, Satu.
And his wife, yes. And then eventually I met up at Terry's house with the youngest one, Paul. And it was just lovely. They told me so many little bits, and it was what I needed to know.
It's really, the not knowing, isn't it?
Yes, because my mother would never discuss it. It was just a hole in my life. You need to know where you come from, and you know, however bad it was. Or oh, and another interesting thing is that Terry, the middle brother of the 3 younger ones, had my father's war diaries, diary one, and he passed it on to me. I've still got it. It's to go back to him when I die. And that was very interesting in his war years, and spoke about my mother in quite glowing terms. And
that was lovely to have, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yes.
So you felt like you had a connection to your father.
Yes, I did. Yes, it was a very happy ending, because from not knowing anything, I got to know quite a lot, really.
And we had a big family. I was going to say reunion, but not reunion.
No.
Family get-together with all of them at your old house, didn't we, with Dad?
Yes.
And I met my cousins.
Their children.
Their children, and it was lovely. It was really something quite special.
And I felt it was just something I'd always needed to know and never had known, and it was just nice. It was a story with a happy ending, which was very nice, yes. Sadly, there's only 2 of them left now, but I keep in contact with one of them, so it's all good.
Christmas cards and phone calls.
Yes, phone calls, yes. So it's very nice, yes, and I feel very privileged. There's so many people that, when you watch these programmes, that don't ever find an ending, or sometimes not a happy ending. So I do feel I was... my mother's probably turning in her grave after all that, but...
I don't think she would be. I think she would be quite happy that you've made the contact that you needed to.
Yes,
although she didn't want to be involved in it, I think.
Yes, I think
she wouldn't be unhappy about it. I think it's nice. You've got to do what you've got to do, haven't you, really? The other thing I just thought I might mention was when you contacted this Ariel Bruce, you had to pay her, didn't you?
Yes.
It was a paid arrangement. She doesn't go and do it out of the bottom, great.
No, she doesn't.
No, but she was...
Yeah, she was very nice,
she obviously
very
has
helpful.
all the contacts and everything,
absolutely,
doesn't she?
She does, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so she's been several times on the television, and so that was my lucky day seeing her name mentioned there. I thought, I think I'll do something, and I did. So,
and now we've got the story down on video forever and ever.
I hope I've been quite articulate about it.
I felt like you have,
Oh, good. Thank you for watching.
If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I will pass them on to Mum, and we can if there's lots of questions, we can do a follow-up video, or I can try and answer them.
Yes, thank you for listening to my story.
Yes, I hope you all enjoyed that. It's a lovely story with a sort of happy ending and a bit of a mystery, and then finding everything out and a happy ending. It's nice to, it's a nice one to have got down on video. It's one of our family's stories, I guess, that will now go into the annals of history.
Down forever.
So thank you very much for coming on my channel and telling my story, your story.
Well, it's partly yours as well.
Yeah, I guess it is really. And we will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye.